What's going on, everyone? It is the Derf, and today I'm going to be giving you a crash course on how and where to focus your armor and correlate it to your overall builds to help you achieve the stat rolls that you are chasing. So it's going to be a little bit long-winded, but I'm going to go through a couple of things to help you prepare for the focus and then kind of go into where you can go and how you can get rolls that you're looking for, or at least the process to achieving those, as it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all for everyone. So if you do find anything helpful with this video, please consider liking and subscribing. If not, and you know of someone that's looking for a crash course how-to video on how to do anything that I'm talking about today, please share it with them. My goal is to try to help as many people as possible. So without further ado, let's get on into it. So the first thing that I want to touch on, and I'm going to touch on it briefly, is loadouts. Anytime that you are coming into making a class, and you can see I've got various elements here on the screen: solar, strand, void, etc. And then at my bottom, I've got prismatic builds that I've got coded with a different icon. Whenever you're approaching a build and you're going to be conscious of your stats and you want to focus armor or build it around armor that can complement your overall build, you're going to want to make the build first, and then you can save it, and then you can start your armor focusing. And once you've got said pieces in place, and again, it's going to be a process from top to bottom, you can reference your loadouts for whatever element you're focusing for and make sure you are overriding each build that you have. So if you want to create a solar build, you can see I haven't touched my solar build in a long time because I've been running a lot of prismatic. But if I go down to my prismatic, I've got different armors in different slots with different modifications in each one. And the way that I did that is I picked the element that I wanted to run first. I made the build that I wanted it to be, and then I went in to focus my armor. So that's just a caveat to the beginning of kind of this whole process. So make sure you're saving your loadouts, your armor, your mods, any fragments that you have will save. And as soon as you equip said loadout, it will change your class to what you had it saved before. But I would recommend, kind of like I did, just do it one at a time. Start with the elements that you like the most or the playstyle you like the most. Make your build with your class and your fragments and all that, and then save it so that you know, hey, I've got this set the way that I want it. Whether that's for a lot of melee, a lot of grenades, super spam, however you do it, it's not a one-size-fits-all. But if you forget to save and then you go back, or let's just say your connection gets interrupted or something and you lose your progress, it's just going to be more of a pain for you to go back and recreate what you did, because chances are you're trying to think about what you're doing as you're doing it. You know, again, it's not a one-size-fits-all, so you're going to be in there kind of going over the play style that you want to do. So the best way to negate any extra headache, so to speak, is to make sure you're saving your loadout. So that's a caveat before we get into kind of how we're going to do all this. Make sure you save your loadouts. So next, I'm going to say, before you get into armor focusing, build the build that you want to build. And what I mean by that is there's going to be, I'm just using prismatic as a base point. There's going to be fragments in any class that give you add-ons to stats or takeaways, like Facet of Purpose is a -10 to recovery. It doesn't really matter what you are building towards as far as the stats at this point. You know, the stat distributions, you know, at the left-hand side here. Don't worry about this first. Worry about which fragments you're going to benefit from the type of play that you're going to be playing. In other words, if you want to spam melee, you know, make sure you have the melee that you want to spam. And then if there's fragments that correlate to that melee, put that on there. Same thing with orbs of power, same thing with like armors, same thing with buffs. Whatever you're trying to do, build that first before you start to focus your armor. So in this case, I want to be able to move faster, so I've got Lightning Surge, so I'm going to get amplified when I use that. It's also going to pair with my Arcane Needle, so I've got 3 charges that I can use at any given time once it's fully charged. Another buff that I want is I want to be able to activate Devour pretty much at any time, or keep Devour going. So things that I have in my fragments are going to complement that. So when I made this build, I wasn't worried about the stat distribution. I was worried more about how the build was going to function for me. So I'm just going to quickly go through this. I've gone through this build video before, but as you can see, the Facet of Justice gives me a bump to intellect, but I want the ability Final Blows when I'm Transcendent to explode. So I wanted that. Same thing with Facet of Purpose. I want that Orb of Power to give me my Overshield. Okay, but it came at a cost at a -10 to recovery. Again, don't let that sway you. Just build it how it's going to help you the most. Next, Facet of Honor, I got a +10 to Strength. Again, I didn't really build it with the intention of getting a +10 to Strength. I think that's pretty obvious considering that my Strength right now is at a T3 and the 2 elements above it are at T10s. So I'm not really worried about Strength, but that's just a nice kind of buff that you get for free. But again, I want the elemental pickup or destroying a tangle to give me bonus transcendence energy of the same type. That's just what I wanted, but you might want something different. This one, here we go again. The Facet of Sacrifice, when I have an Arc Solar Void buff, which again, I'm running Void, so I'm going to have a Void buff at some point. I get a +10 to Discipline. This one, obviously, I do take a little bit advantage of. You can see I'm at a T10 right now. However, I wanted what the fragment offered before I figured out how to focus my armor to complement it. And then my last one doesn't have a buff or a debuff attached to it. It's just something that fits my playstyle. So once you figure that out, you're going to end up coming over here and you're going to see kind of where your stats lie. Now everybody is going to get, a standard set of armor. If you're just booting up the game for the first time, when you go through the campaigns and things like that, you're going to get different armors that are going to have different powers, different stat distributions. Get used to the way that your character plays first and get used to kind of understanding how the fragment system works before you start to deep dive onto stat distribution, how to focus that. And again, once you have a build in place, like once I had this set up, I saved it before I picked my weapons and before I started looking at my armor. So this is how I would recommend, if you're just getting into building now, this is how I would recommend build the way you want to play first, and then make your armor complement the way that you play so that it helps you. One of the next points I'm going to make before I start going into how to get said armor or where to go is your Ghost. Now on your Ghost, make sure that you upgrade it to 10 energy. Okay, you're going to have to spend some materials, but that's okay, because if you end up getting a Ghost that you particularly like I've had this final shell for, I don't know, months, years, somewhere in there, you just keep it forever. You're going to get other ones that you're going to collect over the years, but if you're going to be using your Ghost to help you, do things like, boost your XP, detect caches and resources within a 50-meter radius, or maybe get bonus enhancement cores, for example. It's just a nice little thing to have. And once you upgrade it one time, it's upgraded forever. It's not, if you do end up deleting, your Ghost, or you dismantle your Ghost, you're going to get some of those resources back. But I've got 2 of them that I swap back and forth when I get bored of looking at one. So this is just the one that I have for right now. This third point right here, a lot of people do take the Glimmer boost. If you're lacking on Glimmer, this is a popular, obviously slot to put the Glimmer boost on. And you do get a pretty good amount of Glimmer boost. But if you're focusing on armor, this second row is really what you're going to be focusing on. Now this is key. Whenever you want to focus on a particular stat, you're going to want to equip the Ghost mod in the stat that you ideally want to be highest. Now, when you equip this mod, it is not a 100% guarantee that the stat that you focused on is necessarily going to be the highest stat of your role. It just means that it's a guaranteed minimum of 10. So in whatever stat you want, strength, resilience, recovery, mobility, intellect, or discipline, it's a guaranteed 10, but it's not guaranteed to be the highest single stat line. In other words, you might get 10 in discipline, but maybe in this particular role, you also got a 20 in mobility. That's just how it goes sometimes. When people talk about focusing versus farming, focusing is sort of a version of farming. Farming is completely random. That's going to be a random armor drop. Focusing is going to be, I want to put energy into a specific stat. I'm going to get engrams to submit to a particular vendor, and I'm looking to get a specific role so that I can maximize the stats that apply to my build. It's going to be different for everyone. So just make sure that when you're trying to focus on a specific stat, you've got that stat selected when you're focusing your armor. And another point to that is you have a better chance of getting a little bit higher rolls in that particular stat on random armor that you pick up if you have this equipped as well. Again, that's RNG for the most part, but again, the Ghost mod is supposed to help you overall get better rolls in the stats that you want. So that's just kind of a little tidbit how that works. And now I'm going to go into kind of how it works further between the stats. So your stats are broken up into 6 categories: mobility, resilience, recovery, discipline, intellect, and strength. So what you're going to want to do when you're focusing armor before you start submitting engrams to vendors is you're going to want to divide this list in half into 2 groups, Group A and Group B. Group A is going to consist of mobility, resilience, and recovery. And Group B is going to be discipline, intellect, strength. And the reason that you want to look at it like this is if you are focusing in a particular stat in Group A, you are going to most likely get bonus stats in 2 of the categories in Group B. So as you can kind of see, I have heavily focused on resilience in this build. The next stats that I got, and again, this was just what I was trying to focus on. I wanted resilience, discipline, and intellect. So when I was submitting engrams and focusing my armor, I would have the Ghost mod on for resilience, and then I would focus it and see what came out. So these other 3 stats, again, this is just for me, are dump stats. So I don't care about mobility. I don't care about recovery because I have a fix for that through the mods of my armor. And strength, I wasn't concerned about that because you can stack 3 arcane needles at any given time. And I'm not using one every minute. I'm using one maybe every 2 or 3 or 4 minutes. So I'm pretty much always charged up on melees. But if I did want to spam 3 in a row, I have that option. But again, this is just what I built. You might have a different one selected. So strength for me was a dump stat, meaning I don't care what that stat gets to. Recovery, same thing, was a dump stat. I don't care what that gets to. And same thing with mobility, especially on a warlock. It really doesn't matter. Mobility is not going to make you any more powerful, any more faster, or any better than any other warlock out there. So focusing on resilience, I would get a roll, and I'm going to go through my armor to kind of show you how it came out. I would get bonus stats on my resilience, and then the armor that I decided to keep when I was focusing, I wanted those extra stats to be in one of these 2 categories. If I got a piece of armor that had resilience buff and a discipline and intellect stat dump in it, I kept that piece of armor. Now, if I had extra engrams and I wanted to see if I could get higher rolls, I certainly did. But one thing that I want to say real quick is the minimum amount of stat in any of these categories is going to be 2. The maximum amount of add-on stats to any of these categories or to the armor piece as a whole is 22. You're going to get +2 to each of these stats when you masterwork it. So +2 to mobility, resilience, and so on. Then you have the option to put a +5 energy mod or a plus 10 energy mod on to each one of these armors. So again, as you're thinking about how you want to build whatever class you're building, these are things you got to factor in. What is important to you? What mods are you going to use? What stats do you care about the most? Making sure that your ghost mod is activated, and then it's just going to come down to you to work on each individual piece, as you go along. The only exception for that, obviously, well, maybe it's not obvious. The only exception for that is going to be the class item. The class item doesn't come with predetermined stats. Bungie has talked about coming out with class items that have, rolled stats and things like that. It hasn't happened yet. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but it has been talked about. It's just never been a thing, honestly. So you're going to automatically get, you can see I'm at 17 total stats. That could be at 22. You can see the plus 2s across the board. That's from masterworking it, and then I have a plus 5 to my discipline factored into here. So that's where the plus 7 comes from. But in all the rest of these, they come pre-rolled. So just so you can kind of see how this worked out. Now again, some of this is a little bit of luck, but if you stay focused and you focus on one armor piece at a time, you enjoy the process of building your character into who you want it to be. So it's not like I just got these rolls overnight. It's not like I just decided to dump a bunch of engrams and I got super lucky. It is a little bit of luck, but it's not instant luck. You're still going to have to play around with it a little bit. Or maybe you're tired of focusing on leg armor, for example, and you want to go to chest armor. Hey, let's just see if I've got better luck with this. That works too. So as you can see, I focused on resilience. My two other stats that came through for me was discipline and intellect. Now on this particular one, intellect came in at 22. Discipline only came in at 12. But again, I didn't care because my goal was, well, first off, we want an armor total of over 85 if you can help it. I've got 88. Ideally, you want 90, but I'm really not hurting for those extra 2 stats. So you can see I was focusing on resilience. So my highest stat was resilience. It came in at 32, so I was pretty psyched about that. My second highest stat was intellect. Again, A versus Group B. So Group B had 2 higher stat totals than Group A, which was my single stat total. So I got my 32 in resilience. My next one was 22 in intellect, and then I had 12 in discipline. The other 3, mobility, recovery, and strength, were my dump stats. You can see I've got plus 4 in there, so they all rolled with plus 2. That's the ideal way to do it if it's a stat you don't care about. It doesn't, as you'll see later here, it doesn't always work like that. And, most people don't have unlimited supplies to just keep, or unlimited materials to just keep dumping energy into it. You still have to play the game in order to get these materials to do what you're trying to do. So what I did was I put a plus 10 to my discipline stat buff on. I got that up to 22. So now I got 32, 22, and 22. So if you just multiply that out, there's 4 pieces of armor that could roll with that. That would give you 88 in discipline and intellect. And it would give me, I don't even know what this comes out to, 128 for resilience. So you're kind of seeing a precursor to focusing in the future once you've maxed out a stat you're looking at, because anything above 100 is not going to be any benefit to you whatsoever. It's the same as if it was 100. Up here, you can see my rolls were essentially the same. However, I did have a little bit of stat dump into recovery. I wasn't too worried about that. I did take advantage of a plus 10 to my discipline, so I bumped that up to 24 because it rolled with 12. Intellect rolled with 22, and resilience rolled with 25. So just between these 2 stats right here, I had 57 already into resilience and mid to high 40s in discipline and intellect. So again, my mobility is low, my recovery is low, and my strength is low. But again, it fits how I played, so I kept it. Next up, we've got, again, I'm just using this as an example, my gauntlets. This one rolled with a 32 in resilience, an 18 in discipline, and a 15 in intellect. Now, this wasn't quite my ideal roll. 32 in resilience and just 2 in mobility, recovery, and strength. meant that there was less stat potential to go into discipline and intellect. So this one I took under the guise that I knew I was going to have to bump up intellect a little bit because it was a little bit lower than I wanted it to be, sitting at 15. Ideally, I would get 20 in each one. You can see I'm lacking a little bit in discipline, but I kind of rolled the dice on it. And because I focused on building my character before I started focusing on building the armor, I was able to make this one work. So if you're doing math right now, I got 32 in resilience, 25 in resilience, and another 32 in resilience. So that's 64, that's 89. So it maxes out at 100. You don't get any more benefit after that. So after 11 more energy in resilience, I'm going to be at a T10, which means when I start focusing on the exotic, which is Nezarec Sin here, I had to account for that. And what I mean by that is I didn't want to overshoot resilience. I mean, I still did. Obviously, I'm sitting at 104. But I didn't want to overshoot resilience so comically high that it was like I was wasting whole stat lines going into a stat that wasn't going to benefit me whatsoever. And this is something that you kind of have to be conscious of. So when you're focusing your armor, focus on the legendary stuff first. It is the easier of the armors to come by, which probably makes sense. It's legendary versus exotic. It's also cheaper and less time consuming than focusing exotic engrams, for example. Focus your legendary armor because when you're playing regular activities, that's going to be the armor that you get. That's going to be the engrams that you get, the prime engrams or whatever that you're going to be able to use at whatever vendors you're trying to go to. So when I came up to my exotic, I thought, well, I've only got about 11 energy until I'm at a T10. If I go over that by a little bit, I'm not going to be too upset. I just don't want to go over it by, let's just say, 6, 7, 8 or more than 100 without it being like, all right, I might have to refocus this again so that it's more logical for the rest of my build. Because again, any extra stats that I have in resilience could be in another stat. In this case, it doesn't seem to hurt me. I guess in theory, I could take those 4 energy that's in resilience. It could have gone in my mobility. I could have gotten to a T2 instead of a T1, but whatever. Mobility, I'm not really concerned about. And if I'd hit the nail on the head at an even 100 and I put 4 into recovery or 4 into strength, it would have made no difference in any of my cooldowns. So I'm okay with this. But again, it depends on how you play. If you do need those stats to go somewhere else and they're in a stat category like resilience that's not, that's already maxed out, for example, you're not going to, again, it's not the end of the world. It's just something that you're going to have to come back to. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's a balance. So when I went to focus my exotic, I switched my ghost mod from resilience to recovery. And as you can see here, my highest stat that I got in this, actually my second highest stat, actually no, it was my highest stat, was in recovery at 23. My second highest stat was intellect because again, group A, mobility, resilience, recovery, group B, discipline, intellect, and strength. Now this one, I kept this for a couple of reasons. Number one, I was able to tack on to 92 total points on this, which is very good. I think it can max out, if I'm not mistaken, at 95. So just a hair below that. But there's no dump stats in here that are wasted, except for maybe strength a little bit. But again, I use that, to get to the T3 that I was at. So I was able to take advantage of that a little bit. Otherwise, I'd probably still be at a T2. But I focused on recovery. It was my highest stat. It rolled at a 23. My next highest stat was intellect, which was at a 22. And then this was just how it worked out for me here. It's not a one size fits all, but I got bonus stats in discipline and a few stats in resilience. So resilience actually, I said I needed 11. It actually rolled with a 13. So I was like, great. So I hit my T10 in resilience, How's my other stats looking? Well, I'm not going to complain about a little extra recovery. And certainly with discipline and intellect, I was pretty happy with those rolls as well. So again, because I built the build first and then I got the stats afterwards, remember I've got a fragment on there that's got plus 10 to intellect. So I knew I was going to hit that T10 on that. A T9 is ideal in every category, but that's just not realistic. So if you hit those T10s, you get those little extra boosts, you're going to be pretty happy. Even a double 100 is hard to achieve on some builds. It just depends on the fragments that you have, especially if they have negative effects on your stat distribution. So this is kind of how I made mine, and it's worked for me for Prismatic. Now, if I were to go with a void specific build and I wanted to build it with all new armor and all new stats and all new focusing, that's where it's going to come full circle with creating the loadouts. So you can see here I got my Prismatic Void build right here. If I go back, you can see right here I did create a different Void build. It is a solo Void build. In other words, there's no Prismatic involved. There's no Arcane Needle or anything. It's all Void aspects, all Void super, all Void grenades and melee. So that's where the loadouts and saving these things is going to become important, so that if you do want to run Void specific for any reason, maybe you've got a bounty that you want to complete or whatever, or you're trying to achieve a challenge in like a raid, this is where saving your armor, the way that you want to build it, saving your mods the way that you want to build it, and saving the weapons as well as the fragments the way you want to build it as you build really comes full circle. So I'm going to go through right now and show you where you can focus your armor for this season, whether it is exotic or you're trying to focus legendary armor. If you're just starting your armor focusing journey and you don't have all the different places unlocked or don't understand how it works, but you can understand or do understand basic activities like Vanguard, Gambit, and Crucible, you can start to focus the engrams that you earn from each activity at said vendor. To focus Vanguard engrams, you're going to come to Zavala in the tower. You're going to select either the focus decoding or the legacy gear. Inside the legacy gear, you're going to come to the right here. You can see I don't have any engrams to demonstrate a pull, but I'm just going to show you how it works. So you click over, this is your main screen. You're going to click over and you're going to have 4 different pieces of armor. Now, yes, you are going to need a class item as well. So you can just grab that from the other tab, but you can see as I hover over them, focusing with a high recovery stat due to equipped Ghost mod. Now, you will not get ultra high stat armor from focusing at vendors in the tower from ritual activities like Vanguard, Gambit, or Crucible. However, it can help jumpstart you to getting the type of build that you are looking for without having to have hours and hours and hours dumped into different activities with no straightforward thing that you're doing or focusing on specifically. In other words, if you really like strikes, you can get armor as you go through the strikes. If strikes are something that you enjoy, you like to farm them, this is something you can get as a reward from them. You won't get high stat armor from this vendor, but you will get a lot of engrams as you run Vanguard activities, such as strikes and basic nightfalls, or even GMs in the end of it. To get the class item, you can come over here to the Legacy Gear tab and tab over. Your class item is going to be the 5th item on each one of these pages. It does cost 15,000 Glimmer and 3 Vanguard engrams. The other tab, all of the armor only costs 5,000 Glimmer and 3 Vanguard engrams. So this is a good spot if you're just getting started on strikes and you don't have the build-up in power or different activities to focus engrams elsewhere. This is a good jump start to help you get familiar with how the focusing works. Next, I'm showing you Lord Shaxx from the Crucible. If you enjoy Crucible activities, you're going to undoubtedly get Crucible engrams. They're going to show up in here in this main menu, right up here, same as Vanguard. And then you're going to go into Focus Decoding right here, and you're going to see you have 4 pieces of armor that you can use those engrams to focus. Just like in Vanguard with Zavala, you can see I've got focusing with a high recovery stat due to equip ghost mod. So you'll get that high recovery stat or whatever stat you're focusing on your ghost mod from here, but you won't get that high overall number of stats in the armor piece, because that's going to be something I'm going to explain later. But again, if you enjoy Crucible, you can come to Lord Shaxx. You can focus either on the regular focus decoding or the legacy gear. It's going to be the same situation. Your legacy gear is going to be 15,000 glimmer and 3 Crucible engrams. The focus decoding is going to be 3 engrams and 5,000 glimmer. So a little bit of a discount on that. So that helps you get jump started at a discounted rate with a simple, or at least semi-simple, ritual activity. If you enjoy Crucible, make sure you are focusing your engrams at Shaxx on the armor that you're trying to get, and hopefully you can jumpstart and get the rolls that you want, again, from Lord Shaxx. Finally, in the tower, you can head on down to the annex. If you like playing a lot of Gambit and you want to try to start your focus journey with your armor, you can head on over to the Drifter, and just like with Zavala and Shaxx, you can obtain engrams from playing Gambit and then focus them in the focus decoding tabs. So for focus decoding, you can come in here, you can see again, 4 pieces of armor to choose from. It all shows up focusing with a high recovery stat due to equip ghost mod. If you want a class item from a Gambit background, you're going to have to go to the legacy screen, where you're going to have to pay 15,000 glimmer as opposed to 5,000 in the focus decoding. So either way, it's going to cost you 3 Gambit engrams. But if you like Gambit, you're satisfied with the weapons that you have, and you're ready to try to start a little bit of a journey into the focusing spectrum, and all you do is the ritual activities such as Gambit, much like Strikes and Crucible, you can come here and focus your engrams and try to get a head start on getting not a fully complete build setup, but a more developed build to help fit your playstyle. If you are looking for that truly high stat legendary armor, the only place that you're going to be able to get it, at least specifically for this episode, Revenant, is going to be in the helm at Failsafe. So you're going to come over here to Failsafe, and just like others, you're going to see the menus in front of you. You can see that I've got Echo engrams. It functions the exact same way as vendor engrams in the tower. You're going to come up here to seasonal engram decoding. Again, seasonal activities are going to give you the highest stat legendary armor possible. So as the seasons progress, I can make more videos explaining where to go, which I probably will. But for this specific season, or any specific season, you're going to want to go to the vendor that's got the seasonal engram decoding, where you can actually focus all 5 items. So you come in here, again, you're going to have this unlocked. So if you're just getting started, this might be a little bit daunting of a task, but you're going to want to play the Breach executable activities, which are located up here: Arena Breach executable, Enigma Protocol, Battlegrounds Echoes, and regular Battleground Echoes. Those are going to drop those seasonal engrams up here in the helm. So then you're going to come over here to Failsafe. You're going to, again, if you don't have all this unlocked, you're going to have to complete some challenges in here, but you're going to have to come in here and then focus on whichever piece of armor you're looking. Specifically, at least for this season and sometimes others, when you are wearing said armor, you're going to get some benefits as to more often getting engrams for the specific activity. In this case, I'm just going to show you, grants 10% additional fail-safe vendor reputation from all sources. So as your reputation increases, you're going to get more of these echo engrams. You take these echo engrams and you can focus them into the specific armor that you want. If we quickly look at my armor, almost all of my armor is going to have, I think it all is actually, from failsafe. Yep, Echoes of Glory, Echoes of Glory, and yep, so all 4 of my legendary pieces currently on this same build that I just went through are from failsafe. Again, this is going to be a trial and error. Focus on the stats that you want. I recommend resilience as the #1 stat to focus on. And then basically just pick and choose where you're going to go. In this instance, because it's the seasonal activity or the seasonal vendor, it's only going to cost you 2,000 glimmer and 2 echo engrams per focus. So as you focus these, I recommend doing like 2 or 3 at a time. You're going to come into your screen here and you're going to check whichever piece of armor you pick up. Look at the rolls of each one. If you like any of them, keep them. If you don't like any of them, I understand it's a little bit of a grind. That's pretty much the point of the game. You're going to want to delete them. Don't waste your energy on low stat retrievals. And what I mean by that is when you get a piece of armor, if you add 22 to it and you get above 85, 86, 87, 85 would be the minimum, it's a higher stat roll. Ideally, you want to add 22, the 12 from masterworking it, and then the extra 10 from the mod that's going to end up being used if you choose to use a mod on top of that. So just keep that in mind. So 88 minus 22 comes out to 66 base stat armor. As you can see, 87, I had 65. This one was 82, but I've only got a +5 mod in this. So if you subtract 5 and 12, it's going to be minus 17, comes out to 65. And then obviously your class item doesn't have any predetermined mod or stats on it, so you just shape that how you want. But I just did this to get the bonus engrams when I'm doing ritual activities, raids, or whatever else. You still have a chance to get extra echo mods with that. So as you're going through and you're focusing, it is going to be a journey. At one point I had maxed all the engrams that I could possibly get from a vendor. I think it's 99. I assume it's still 99. And I just came in here and I said, okay, I'm going to do 2 or 3 helmets, 2 or 3 gauntlets, 2 or 3 chest armors, 2 or 3 leg armors, and then I'm going to go into my armor and then view each one as they fall. So as far as focus decoding, this is going to be where you're going to get truly the higher stat legendary armor possibilities. All the vendors in the towers, with the exception of the next one I'm going to talk about, it's not going to be truly high stat. Now, you do have a chance, so if there is a chance, you might as well take it if you're happy with the weapons you're using. Otherwise, this is where you're going to come for this specific episode for Revenant to focus engrams to truly get as high stat of legendary armor as possible without doing master level content like dungeons, for example. So next I'm going to explain how to do this same thing, but with exotic armor. Whenever you are ready to start focusing on a specific exotic armor piece to fit the build that you have hopefully already created and are at least somewhat happy with, head on over to Master Rahul. He is the only one that can focus exotic engrams. So the key here being, you're going to need exotic engrams. Real quickly, you can check how many you've got by tabbing over to the inventory screen, and you can see I've got 5 right now. You can also, if you have it, the engram tracker, you can see how many engrams you have specifically for any activity related vendor. So that's just kind of a tidbit. Some of these are not going to be available at all times, like Trials and Iron Banner. Those are rotational activities. But Vanguard, Crucible, Gambit, that's an everyday activity. The Gunsmith, that's for weapons. And then Helm, Failsafe, that's for your legendary higher stat armor possibilities. But when you're ready, head on over to Rahul. Make sure you've got some engrams. I recommend at a bare minimum coming in with at least 2. That way, you're not wasting a lot of time loading in for just a singular chance at something that you might like. And what you're going to do, and I'm just going to show you real quick.
Perhaps a barter is warranted.
I went a little bit too fast. You're going to head over to Master Rahul here. After you approach him, you're going to be greeted with this screen. Typically speaking, if you're not looking for anything in particular, you can redeem these on the spot or decrypt them on the spot. Okay, and before you decrypt them, they're going to give you the power levels that your said result is going to be released in. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to dismiss out of this screen. You're going to head on over to the focus decoding with the exotic armor symbol and hit details. From here, you're going to come to this screen. Now, you can look at each one of these and redeem them this way. If you want to get chest armor, helms, leg armor, or gauntlets, you can do it like that. Or what I recommend is you come on over and tab over to this side right here. Same style, it's going to be from specific seasons. Skip past this and come to this first screen. It's called Precision Decryption. In here, if there are any pieces of exotic armor that you have that are available to you, will be unlocked in here, whether you receive that from a previous decryption or as a result from some activity, whatever. If you've unlocked it previously, you'll be able to redeem it here. These are pricey though, so you're going to have to save up. It's going to cost you 1 exotic engram, 60,000 glimmer, and 2 ascendant shards. I'm going to give you how to get ascendant shards real quick. You're going to come in here to the other services, come into the materials exchange. This right here is an ascendant shard. It costs 10 enhancement prisms and 50,000 glimmer to redeem 1 of them, and you need 2. So to get enhancement prisms, you're going to want to redeem enhancement cores, and it costs 10 cores and 10,000 glimmer to get 1 of them. So as you can see, it's going to be a pricey acquisition. So that's what playing these ritual activities is going to help you do. As you level up with vendors, as you level up in the set activities, for example, you're going to get cores throughout. So you can take those cores and redeem them for enhancement prisms, and eventually, once you get 10, redeem them for an ascendant shard. Now, obviously, you saw I didn't have one, so I'm just going to take one right here. I'm also going to redeem 20 cores right now so I can get 10 enhancement prisms. You can see 10 out of 10. I'm going to grab this ascendant shard one more time. And again, it is pricey, so some of this is going to be based on how often you play and if you're, actually doing activities. If you're just roaming around, you're not going to get a lot of glimmer. You're really going to want to run those ritual activities, Vanguard, Crucible, Gambit, or the seasonal activities for Revenant or for Failsafe, the ones that I showed you. Basically, anything that you complete is going to give you glimmers. So don't be shocked by the high price tag here. Just understand it's kind of part of the journey. But either way, once you have all that, you're going to come over here, and as you can see, I have almost all of them unlocked. The ones I don't have unlocked are the Rain of Fire, Boots of the Assembler, Dawn Chorus, Cenotaph Mask, Speaker's Sight, and Metodoxia. You can tell that I don't have these unlocked because they're darkened and all the rest are lit up. So if I have the ones that are lit up available to me, I can come over here, highlight over them. Let's just say I want the rhyme quote. It's going to cost me 1 exotic engram, 60,000 glimmer, and 2 ascendant shards. Make sure that your ghost has the mod on it that you want to try to have the boosted stat in. With exotics, the highest amount of stats you can get total, I believe, is 94, if I'm not mistaken. So what you want to do is you really want to try to shoot and get somewhere around the 90 overall stat mark. So just kind of a caveat, you're going to want to shoot a little bit higher than normal legendary armor, simply because this is an exotic and you expect more from it. So when you're focusing this, if you don't get the roll that you want, you can at least use this in its current state to give you the buff or whatever it is that you want. If you want to get a rhyme coat going right away, but you don't have the roll that you want on your first try, get your rhyme coat, try to play with it so you can get used to how it works. You can masterwork it if you want, but when it comes time and you have enough materials again, you can come back and refocus and try to get a better roll. Again, this is part of the game. This is the grind. Now, if you don't have any of these pieces unlocked and you're wondering how to unlock them, the first step is going to be to prestige Rahool. Essentially what that means is as you're playing these ritual activities, Rahool is going to increase in rank as you redeem exotic engrams as well as prime engrams. Each time you redeem a prime engram or an exotic engram, this bar right here goes up in rank. Once you reset your rank, which is resetting or getting to rank 16, this menu right here, which I'm going to show you under the focus decoding, will become available to you. It is not available to you until you prestige him one time. I prestiged him last season, or last act I should say, so it is unlocked for me. But for others it might not be. This is the novel decryption menu. Any piece of armor that is in this menu that you want, you can decrypt this if you haven't already unlocked it. So as you can see, the rhyme coat, for example, I don't have that unlocked. I can unlock it here with an exotic cipher and 1 exotic engram. And exotic ciphers, you can get them from Xur. You can also get them from certain ritual vendors once you reach rank 16 with them and reset your progress. Same thing with Rahool. If you redeem enough, you're going to reset your rank. You're going to get, again, it's different for everyone, but this one for me, I'm going to get this exotic cipher. So I'm 13 right now. I won't get this until I'm at 16. And then once I claim this right here, this final piece, my rank goes all the way back down to 0. But this menu right here, again, you're going to click over 1, 2, 3 times. You're going to see the menu darken so you can't go over anymore to novel decryption. Now all of these that I don't have unlocked, I'm going to be able to unlock if I choose. So if I want the rhyme coat, I have to spend 1 exotic engram and 1 cipher. Same thing with Speaker's Sight. Same thing with any of these other ones. Now, if you have all of these things unlocked, but let's say that you don't have Ascendant Shards and you don't have Glimmer, you can come over here and roll your chances with this. So make sure that your Ghost mod has the focused stat that you want to try to get the roll that you want. So this is how all of the exotic armor that I have, I eventually got the rolls that I was looking for. As you can see with Nezarec Sin here, I focused on recovery. I got a decent roll for recovery and intellect, which I use a lot. My total is over 90, which is ideally what you want with added stats. And it's just one of those things where, again, out of all the armor here, this is going to be the one that's going to be the most expensive. It will probably upset you from time to time that you're dumping time into these activities and it seems like you're not getting a lot back from it. But don't lose heart. Keep coming back. Every time you come to the tower to grab some bounties from Banshee, for example, stop by Rahul if you've got the materials and maybe just focus one and see what you can get. The best way I can say is focus on the build that you want to maximize the most and make that your priority. Once you get the build that you want, in other words, you get the Nezarec Sin or whatever to the role that you want and your build for that element, in this case, my Prismatic Void Warlock is complete. That's when you come on over here to the loadouts. After you mod all your armor the way you want, your stats are where you want, make sure you come over to this loadout and you hit overwrite or equip. If you have, well, it's just going to be overwrite, or if you have an empty spot, it's just going to be as simple as save new. And that's pretty much the crash course of how to focus armor as well as correlate it to your overall build. To recap real quick, start with your build first. Get the elements and the fragments and the abilities and the aspects that you want that are going to make the most sense for what you are trying to do. Once you have this, the next step is to make sure you have the weapons that you want, if possible. And then the next step is to make sure that you have your ghosts fully masterworked and start gaining those resources so you can go to these different vendors and start focusing engrams to get the armor that's going to start to complement you. Now, you can masterwork these armor pieces from the vendors if you want. If you're just looking for baseline rolls, let's just say this is a 7, this is a 3, this is a 7, this is a 7, and this is a 2. That's still a good start for what your preview of your actual build ideally will be, which would be a 10, a 10, a 10, and maybe a T3 in these other stats. So don't lose heart. It is a process. And as you progress, you're going to be leveling up your character, increasing more power. So all these things are going to come full circle, but make sure you're modding your armor in the way that's most beneficial for you, and make sure you're focusing based on the ghost mod that you have. One final caveat that I can say is, if you want to go to other vendors, let's just say I'm going to use these for example. If you want to go to Edo right here and redeem your engrams that you earned because you already have the weapons or whatever from running tons of these onslaughts and all these other activities, you can redeem random engrams from this vendor, and you have a chance, if you get an armor piece, that it might be a good roll. You also have the chance with that same one, again, I'm just going with the two most popular destinations, if you wanted to redeem from Ghost here in the Pale Heart. You can't focus your armor specifically, but you can mod your Ghost if you have all the weapons that you want at some point, and you don't care if you get any weapons again, but you want to have at least a chance to get legendary armor from these vendors that you might have engrams waiting for you from. You can come to these vendors, just redeem them like normal without focusing them, and you have at least a chance to get a piece of armor that's got a roll that might be better than what you currently have on. And if you do get a good roll, you might as well hang on to it because it costs you virtually nothing to redeem. It doesn't cost you anything to normally redeem any of these engrams. The only ones that you actually have to spend resources on is if you're focused decoding. So if I just wanted to redeem all my engrams at any vendor, I would just come in here, I would look up here on any vendor, and I would just hit accept, 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 accept. What you want to do is take those engrams for these vendors that you can focus on and go to the focus decoding to try to get your armor at least jump started in the direction that you want. So that's the video. Hopefully this was a kind of a directive video that helped you kind of see some of the different sides of how people are getting armor that complements what they're trying to do. Whether you're brand new to the game or you're a savvy veteran or you're an expert on building, it doesn't really matter where your journey starts, because your journey has to start pretty much the same no matter who you are. If you're in this menu right here and this menu is empty and you're just starting your first loadout, use this video as a guide to get to where you want to be. Pick an element that you're really passionate about or you have a lot of fun playing with. Make it about the fun factor. Then take that fun factor and start kind of seeing, okay, what abilities am I using the most? Am I using melee a lot? Am I constantly trying to hit my melee and it's always empty? Okay, maybe I want to spec into strength. Am I constantly wishing I had grenades and I'm constantly empty on them? Maybe I want to spec into discipline. Am I getting killed way too easily by enemies? Okay, you're going to want to spec into resilience, which is your armor, your amount of damage you can take. Or, hey, it doesn't seem like I recover health fast enough. Maybe you want to spec into recovery. Again, it just depends on how you play. For me personally, I want to have as much resistance to enemies. I want to be able to call my grenade whenever I want, and I want to be able to use my super as frequently as possible. That's what works for me, and the melee will come over time, but it might be a little bit different for you. So, hopefully this video helped you in some way. If you do find anything helpful in this video, please consider liking and subscribing. I made this video specifically on a couple people's requests on how to do stuff like this. I understand it was a little bit long-winded, and for some, you might find it to be a little bit boring in the beginning, so I'm going to make sure to put chapters on this so that, no matter where you are in your journey for armor focusing or build focusing, you can click to the part here in the video that corresponds most to what you're specifically looking for. So hopefully this helps you. If you know anyone that's struggling with build help and they need a crash course here in 2024 in Revenant, that might be a little bit confused, or maybe you yourself had some questions and you just wanted to see how people are doing it, this is how we're doing it. This is the same for all Guardians out there. It's not up until you start getting to the really high, difficult, higher end content that you're going to get into other different types of armor called artifice armor. But just to get your builds where you want them to be, this is a no-nonsense guide of how to start heading in a direction that helps you enjoy the game more. So hopefully this can reach someone that can really benefit from. That's my goal. I want to help as many people as possible. So if you do know someone, please feel free to share the video. Please feel free to leave some feedback. You can also get at me on my Discord. I've got a link in my channel description. If you want to click on that and interact with me in there, there's already people that message me asking me for help on certain things. I'm more than happy to help, and as soon as I get time to respond, I absolutely will. I will never ignore anyone. So thank you as always for your support, and we'll see you next time. Take care.